At 2:43 a.m. on a cold autumn night, the radar screen inside a Soviet military bunker suddenly lit up. A single bright signal appeared where no aircraft was supposed to exist. The officers on duty froze because this was not a drill. The system was designed to detect only one thing: a nuclear missile launch. Within seconds, alarms echoed through the underground command room. Red lights reflected off steel walls and tense faces. This was the early warning system, meant to give the Soviet Union minutes to respond to nuclear war. The radar now showed not one, but multiple incoming objects. According to the system, the United States had just launched nuclear missiles. If this alert was real, the world had less than 20 minutes left. Standard protocol demanded immediate escalation. Phones were picked up, but no one spoke yet. Every officer knew one wrong move could end civilization. Deep inside the bunker, a duty officer stared at the screen in silence. His name was Stanislav Petrov. He had trained for this exact scenario, but something felt wrong. The system showed 5 incoming missiles. Not hundreds, not dozens, just 5. That made no sense. A real first strike would never be so small. Outside the bunker, the night sky was calm and empty. No explosions, no sirens, no chaos. Petrov knew the radar system was new and untested. It relied on satellites detecting heat signatures from rocket launches. A reflection from clouds could fool it. The computer, however, showed complete confidence. The words "missile launch" blinked on the screen. Protocol demanded Petrov report this as a confirmed attack. If he did, Soviet command would prepare retaliation. Thousands of nuclear warheads would be armed. Cities across the planet would be erased. Petrov felt the weight of the world pressing on his chest. He had minutes to decide: trust the machine or trust his instincts. Sweat rolled down his face as the alarm continued to sound. Other officers waited for his command. The system insisted the threat was real, but Petrov hesitated. He looked again at the data. 5 missiles. Too few, too illogical. If America wanted war, it would strike with everything. He made a decision that would never appear in textbooks. Petrov reported the alert as a system malfunction. The alarms were silenced. The report was logged as a false positive. Minutes passed, then more minutes. No missiles arrived. The radar signal slowly disappeared. The world continued to exist. No explosions, no retaliation, no war. Later, it was discovered the satellites had mistaken sunlight reflecting off high clouds for missile launches. A simple natural phenomenon had nearly triggered World War III. Petrov's decision had saved millions of lives, but his actions were never celebrated. He was quietly reprimanded for not following protocol. The incident was classified and buried. For decades, the public never knew how close humanity came to annihilation, all because of a single radar signal and one man who chose to disobey a machine. What almost no one knew at the time was that this was not the first warning the system had ever produced. It was simply the first one serious enough to force a human decision. The Soviet early warning network was rushed into service under immense political pressure, built in fear, tested in secrecy, and trusted far too quickly. Engineers had warned that the satellites could misread rare atmospheric conditions, but in a world living under constant nuclear tension, speed mattered more than certainty. That night, the system did exactly what it was programmed to do. It detected heat, translated it into data, and turned data into a deadly conclusion. As the minutes passed without impact, the bunker slowly returned to silence, but the psychological damage remained. Petrov understood that if a slightly different officer had been sitting in that chair, history would have ended differently. Protocol would have been followed, reports would have moved up the chain, and decision-makers with only minutes to think might have chosen retaliation over hesitation. Nuclear doctrine at the time was built on the idea that hesitation itself was weakness, and weakness could be fatal. What makes this moment even more disturbing is how fragile the margin truly was. There was no dramatic final countdown visible to the public, no emergency broadcast, no sirens in the streets. Millions of people slept peacefully, unaware that their fate rested on a single interpretation of a glowing dot on a radar screen. Entire cities existed only because one man questioned a machine that insisted it was correct. Years later, when fragments of the incident were finally declassified, it became clear how close the system itself had come to overriding human judgment. The technology was advancing faster than trust could be built, and machines were being given authority long before they deserved it. The Cold War was filled with moments like this, moments where disaster was avoided not by design, but by chance, intuition, and human doubt.
And this raises a terrifying question. If one faulty signal nearly ended the world in 1983, what happens in an age where warning systems are faster, automated, and increasingly controlled by artificial intelligence? The night the radar signal appeared was not just a Cold War story, it was a warning about the future, a reminder that when machines are designed for war, humanity sometimes survives only because someone chooses not to listen. The incident involving Petrov was not an isolated mistake, it was a symptom of a much larger problem. Throughout the Cold War, early warning systems on both sides were plagued by false alarms, misread data, and human error hidden behind layers of secrecy. In the United States, computers once interpreted a training tape as a real Soviet attack, while on another occasion, a single faulty chip reported hundreds of incoming missiles that did not exist. Each time, disaster was avoided not because the systems worked perfectly, but because someone paused long enough to question them. These systems were built for speed, not reflection. Their purpose was to compress decision-making into minutes, sometimes seconds, forcing leaders to act before confirmation was even possible. The logic was brutal and simple: respond immediately or risk losing everything. But this logic assumed the machines were always right, and history proved again and again that they were not. The danger was never just the weapons themselves, it was the belief that technology could remove uncertainty from war. As technology advanced, the margin for human hesitation grew smaller. Automated alerts became faster, data streams became denser, and confidence in machines quietly replaced doubt. The terrifying truth is that every improvement designed to make nuclear defense safer also made accidental war more likely. Fewer humans in the loop meant fewer chances to stop a mistake once it began. Today, many of those systems no longer rely solely on radar and satellites. They use predictive models, pattern recognition, and artificial intelligence to interpret threats before humans even see them. These systems do not feel fear, they do not understand consequence, and they do not question logic unless they are programmed to do so. They act on probability, not wisdom. This is why the night of the radar signal still matters. It exposed a flaw that technology alone cannot fix. No matter how advanced the system becomes, it can still be fooled by nature, by data anomalies, or by assumptions built into its code. The world survived in 1983, not because the system worked, but because a human being refused to surrender judgment to a machine. And as global tensions rise once again, with faster weapons and smarter algorithms, the question is no longer whether such a moment could happen again. The real question is whether there will always be someone willing and allowed to hesitate when the machines say there is no time left. In the years after the incident, Stanislav Petrov lived a quiet life, carrying a secret that the most of the world would never know. There were no medals, no public ceremonies, and no official recognition for the decision that may have saved humanity. Acknowledging his actions would have meant admitting that the system itself was flawed, and during the Cold War, admitting weakness was considered more dangerous than silence. What makes this story unsettling is not just how close the world came to destruction, but how ordinary the moment was. There was no dramatic explosion, no heroic speech, only a tired officer in a dimly lit room questioning a machine that claimed certainty. Civilization did not survive because of superior technology or perfect planning. It survived because of doubt, hesitation, and human judgment. Today, the speed of warfare has increased beyond anything Petrov could have imagined. Hypersonic missiles reduce reaction times to minutes, cyber attacks blur the line between real and false threats, and artificial intelligence now assists in decisions that once required human deliberation. Each advancement promises greater security, yet quietly removes another layer of human control. The lesson of that night is simple but terrifying. Systems designed to protect the world can also end it, not through malice, but through error. When machines are trusted without question, a single false signal can still bring humanity to the edge of extinction. The future of global security does not depend only on stronger defenses or smarter algorithms, but whether humans remain willing to challenge the machines they create. Because one day, somewhere in a control room, another screen will light up, another alert will demand an immediate response, and the fate of millions may once again depend on a single decision made in silence. And when that moment comes, the most important weapon will not be a missile, a radar, or a machine. It will be the courage to pause, to doubt, and to say, "Not yet."